Hey, greetings, good evening, guys. How you guys doing? Thank you for tuning in tonight, and I am. Did I turn on the right microphone? Yes. No, I think I turned on the right microphone now. Good evening. Thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. Unfortunately, we're not live tonight for a battle report, as mentioned yesterday. And I've managed to turn down the stream latency, so hopefully you guys aren't lagging behind in chat tonight. So, good evening, everybody. Adam, Carrie, Jack, Rezio, Camille, how you guys doing? Marcel, thanks for tuning in. Tonight, we're just going to do something a little bit different, I guess. I can't decide if I want to stop the music. We'll stop it for a bit. We might turn it back on. We're gonna do something a little bit different tonight, and I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at some tactics, and we're gonna look at you like the new look. Hopefully it doesn't look too it is animated as well, so it looks a little bit better, hopefully. So we're gonna look at, I guess we're gonna look at everything from taking questions on Blood Angels. Hey Derek, hey Julian, thanks for tuning in. Everything from taking some questions on Blood Angels to talking over some of the tactics that we've done in our recent battle reports and victories. We talked over some of the synergies and the secondaries, and we've talked over objectives secured, but let's talk about I've made a few slides, and I don't really know how long we're going to be live for tonight, so we'll be live as long as there's stuff to talk about, I guess. So something a bit different, and we are just waiting for COVID in my area to go down. COVID in my area is apparently so bad that they phoned me up today and I'm getting my vaccine tomorrow. So they've accelerated the vaccine in this area. So hopefully it won't be too long before we're live with some battles again. What Primaris captain is the best, not taking into points into consideration? Oh, good question, I guess. The new one with the mastercrafted bolt rifle and the Gravis armor is pretty good, right? I kind of like him. I think he might be a decent, slow-moving, tough character. I mean, I like characters with toughness 5. And can't wait for community outrage about the new Sisters Primarch and her rules. Speaking of Sisters Primarch and her rules, I guess if no one has seen it, or if some people haven't seen it, then, we can talk a little bit about the Sisters Primarch and her rules, because I was checking out earlier, and this is what she looks like, I guess. She has movement 8, weapon ballistic of 2, strength and toughness of 5, 8 wounds. So basically, a little bit stronger than actually Marneus Calgar, and a 2+ save. She has a 4+ invulnerable save. She has a 4+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. And she also has this, the same rule as Marneus Calgar, right? So each time damage is allocated to the model, you half it and you round up. So, that in itself is kind of, I guess it's better than Duty Eternal, and we all know how strong Duty Eternal is and how great that is. So, I'm guessing that if you compare her to something like Guilliman, I'm guessing she's going to be of equal points, or maybe a little bit more even. Like, maybe 400 points, I reckon. 8 wounds, but basically half all the damage, so really it's 16 wounds. I feel like in terms of balancing things, is it not just better to give them the correct amount of wounds that you're trying to balance for? You're just hiding the wounds, I guess. She's weak against 1 damage models, or 1 damage weapons. I haven't actually looked at her weapons, so I guess we'll see her weapons now. She has a lance. Each time an attack is made with this profile, use 2 hits instead of 1, so she can get 10 attacks with her -2 damage lance, or she can get, each time an attack is made with this weapon, on an unmodified 6, we do mortal wounds, and it's a flat 3 damage. That's pretty good, I suppose. Hitting at strength 8, -3 damage, basically that's the Thunder Hammer, right? Paragon Missile Launcher, I haven't seen this either, so it's kind of, is this not just a Cyclone Missile Launcher right now? I think this is the exact same profile as a Cyclone Missile Launcher. I'd have to check that. Does Cyclone maybe only get heavy 1 if you fire the crack? Or it might be heavy 2. Let me check. It's been a while since I ran something with a Cyclone Missile Launcher. I know a couple of you guys run them on your Dreadnoughts. No, it's just a cyclone missile launcher with a different name, I guess. Paragon missile launcher. And then she gives the aura reroll 1s within 6 inches, in terms of both hits and wounds. And then she also has basically Chapter Master rerolls, but also hits and wounds on the Chapter Master rerolls. Yeah, she's going to be 400, maybe 450 points, I guess. If she's less than that, that seems like she's overpowered, maybe. Has she got any other gun except the Cyclone Missile Launcher? Doesn't really say. Oh yeah, she's got like a heavy bolter. What they didn't show the stats of the heavy bolter, I guess. Or is it just a heavy bolter? Heavy bolter. No, it doesn't mention it. Okay, so hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Steel Rain, Highland, the Dolph, Captain, Mergrand, Willis. Nice. Yeah. It's the lag on the chat is way better actually. They do not list the heavy bolter, so it might just be a mastercrafted heavy bolter or something like that. Okay, so basically 3 damage heavy bolter. If you haven't heard already, I can't recommend bringing a small 5-man squad of Death Company Marines enough. Not only can you get a turn 1 charge with Forlorn Fury, but you can also block an entire. Hey Ollie, how you doing? Table quarter if you position them correctly on the charge. Yeah, I mean, hello Big U. So yeah, I guess we're going to start in a minute about chatting about some of the strategies that we've used in the previous wins on Monday nights. Obviously, I do have a playlist up for all the wins. And I was looking at the playlist earlier today, actually, because here's a playlist of all the games we've played on Monday night. And I actually think every single game in this playlist is a win, just saying. So yeah, I think all these games are wins. But there's a couple of other wins that I did on another channel that aren't here. So what I was thinking I was going to do was grab those other games off the other channel, I'll download them, I'll edit them. Audio is pretty tough to deal with, mate. Is my audio bad tonight? I do have another microphone if this one always seems to mess with me. I can't hear myself, so I can turn it on so I can hear myself. It's not crackling and stuff, is it? No, it's fine. Bad audio. Some people are saying the audio is fine, some people are saying it's bad. I mean, if there's a little background noise, it'll be my family is here. You know, we're normally not. They're you know. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it's. Let me hear my own audio for 1 second and I'll decide. Like. 1 second. I swear this microphone always messes with me. Testing. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Something is up with that tonight. It does sound weird. Let me switch. Alright, testing. Test. Alright. Might sound a little bit more distance on this video, but maybe it. Sorry. I swear this microphone over here just messes with me all the time. Yeah, sorry, train of thought has gone. Alright. Thank you. Yeah, so I've put together some slides, which we'll dive into in a minute or two. And the slides are just some of the tactics that we've been using to win all the games that we have been winning, and some of the thoughts and structure around how to win games, how to deploy, that sort of stuff. Because we haven't done too much stuff on deployment, but we have done. I mean, we've done a number of videos on secondaries and objective secure just this week, so I guess we can answer any questions that people might have on that as well. And yeah, I don't know, that microphone, it's, I thought I had it fixed finally, but apparently it's still a waste of space. Okay. So yeah, let's jump into some tactics talk then. And yeah, I think what I was saying before people mentioned that the audio was bad was that we have a few games against, like, we have a game against Tyranids, we have a tough game against Sisters, and we have some other things that that haven't ever been shown on my channel. So I played a few games on other people's channels. So my thought was to grab the games on the other channels because they didn't get that many watches, and we'll edit them and we'll talk tactics and stuff over them as well. So whatever issues on my end they can be handled with volume control. Yeah, no, I think that microphone sometimes just plays up, Jeff. What are your thoughts on Dreadnoughts lists within Blood Angels? I mean, full Dreadnought lists, I'm not sure because I've never run one, but Dreadnoughts in general, I mean, I like them a lot. Their Duty Eternal is very good. I'm thinking about running Assault Hellblasters with Mastercrafted and Sergeant. What do you think? I have a lot of Hellblasters painted, but I've never used them myself in 9th edition. Maybe once. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about Hellblasters. Like I said, I haven't used them much. Thanks, Edge Life. I appreciate your kind thoughts. Are we gonna talk about the winning list with the attack bikes? I mean, we can talk about the winning list with attack bikes. I run attack bikes in my list, right? Attack bikes are super strong right now, especially with Chapter Master either just being around to let them reroll ones or to give them Chapter Master rerolls. I think the Chapter Master rerolls on attack bikes are like so core. They do so much work every game, and the bikes are difficult to shift as well, you know? Especially if you can get a Psychic Fortress or the Priests feel no pain around them, and it's pretty awesome. Join the Redemptor Club, Jeff. I have ordered my 3rd Redemptor, so I love Redemptors. I think they're a great model. I think they do a lot of work on the tabletop. They soak up a ton of fire. That Duty Eternal is really good. Librarian Dreadnought is one of the HQs and various of Dreadnoughts and Elite slots. Yeah, I mean, I'm running 2 Dreadnoughts, and I'm going to be running 3 in my new list. I'm going to run a Librarian Dreadnought and 2 Redemptors. But yeah, I think Dreadnoughts are generally pretty good. What could replace attack bikes if you don't like the looks? I mean, you can replace attack bikes with Eradicators or Inceptors, really. Inceptors are a slightly different role, I guess, but attack bikes can be almost directly replaced with Eradicators, right? All right, so let's maybe start this presentation and let's talk. So this will include slides you've seen before. So obviously this was a slide I created for another video where we played Custodes, and these are the secondaries that I took. I guess if you want to see these slides, you could just search my channel for Blood Angel secondaries, and we can talk about I guess let me see if I can make myself out of the way here. Yeah, okay, we'll go up in the top right and try and be a bit more out of the way. We can talk. So what I've done for every battle is put together a little thought about what I did in deployment and why, and then what in terms of enemies that we have to deal with. Leviathan Dreadnoughts are great. The only issue I have with Leviathan is my list doesn't have any CP left over to take Leviathans. But overall, Leviathan Dreadnoughts are arguably, yeah, they're very strong. They're arguably the most survivable unit the Blood Angels can field, actually, in terms of, like, they are toughness 7. They do have a 2+5+ save. They do have 14 wounds with Duty Eternal. Yeah, and I agree, Reziel. I think Outriders were better before the. I don't think Outriders needed to go up 5 points per model. I think they were fine at 45 points. I didn't even think they were super competitive at 45, so at 50 points per model, I don't agree with that at all. So, when we were this game a few weeks ago, we were playing against Custodes, right? And in all these, I will share this presentation at the end of the video, so if anyone wants to download the presentation and get information, you can do that. I'll share it with everybody. Normally I just share it with members, but in this case we'll just share this presentation with anyone. Do you know what? We'll even probably just share it now if anyone wants to follow along. let me double check I've got it set so anyone can see it. Anyone with the link can view? Yeah, sure. That's what we want. Alright, so if anyone wants to follow along with the presentation, I'll just throw it in the chat. Hopefully you can just click it. And yeah, normally I just save my presentations for members, but I guess we'll do this differently this week. If that doesn't work in the chat, please tell me and I'll post it in Discord or something like that. So, alright, I'm actually seeing people jump in. Anonymous Wombat is now viewing this presentation, so one of you guys is a Wombat. Cool. So, Custodes then, and this list was an interesting list, right? It was like 6 attack bikes, a bike captain, I think he's just called a shield captain on a bike. He then had, I think it was 6 Contemptor Dreadnoughts. I think one of them arrived in Deep Strike. 3 of them were the Contemptus Achilles ones, which are the very shooting ones, and 3 were the Contemptus Galatus Dreadnoughts. So, against Custodes right now, and also in this backfield, he has like a squad of Custodes infantry back here. And when we talked about this battle, and when we talk about deployment, because people often ask me about deployment, I mean, this is what I'd call a castle style deployment, where like I've basically built myself a little castle on the map. Greetings, Arcsuit, how you doing? And I kind of quite often build myself a castle style deployment, and it depends on a lot of factors, I suppose. But these jet bikes basically all have melta guns or the equivalent, and his Contemptor Achilles dreadnoughts bring a decent amount of fire at 24 inches. So in this map, this terrain was basically defensible. So basically, I put everything in here to get my +1 to my armor save, with the hope that I believe my Sanguinary Priest was in here, and I always try and position the Priest pretty tactically, right, so that you can get your 6+ Feel No Pain on as many models as possible. And yeah, so you're going to see this a lot in my deployments. You'll see sort of castle style deployments, and you'll also see some deployments where we try and be completely obscured. So there wasn't enough space behind this piece of terrain really to fit my whole army, and you would need to be behind the terrain and not in it to be obscured in this piece of terrain. So I ended up just putting my units into it. Mainly I've put units with 2+ saves at the very front. The Sanguinary Guard, the Blade Guard Veterans, the Centurions, all the units that I think can survive with the +1 to their armor save. And then behind them, obviously, I've got my Whirlwind, I've got my attack bikes up here, and then I had some infiltrators in cover. But playing against a Custodes list like this, and I guess playing against most lists, the first thing that I kind of want to do when I'm playing is think about what targets do I not want to have to deal with. And in this battle against the Custodes, it was definitely the attack bikes, because they're so fast and mobile, they can score points all over the map. They are very good at killing as well. So I didn't want to deal with the attack bikes, and I also really didn't want to deal with his Achilles dreadnoughts, because they have a ridiculous amount of shots. They have like a pretty crazy power fist, I believe, that can do 6 damage as well. And while the Galatus dreadnoughts are no joke either, they only do have 12 inches range, right? So I decided that I decided that they were the smaller of the 2 threats, right? Like, and there's no way I can kill 6 Contemptor dreadnoughts quickly. I only have enough firepower probably to drop 1 Contemptor per turn, maybe 2 if I'm really lucky. So I think that this was my general plan against the Custodes, to try and set up to make charges on their bikes, get rid of those, pick off some of the more damaging dreadnoughts, and then you're always going to have to deal with something, right? And this plan worked out pretty well. We won the game by 8 points. If we look at the secondaries that we picked here real quick as well, we took Relentless Assault, Repair the Teleport Homer, and Oath of Moment. And yeah, I mean, none of those secondaries seem like a long shot here. And the other thing to think about as well is like we purposely took Relentless Assault against Custodes because we knew that he's going to need to get all his units. He's very limited on the number of units he has, right? So like he's going to be moving them up the board, and as such, it's going to be very easy for us to outnumber him in his deployment zone than he is to outnumber us. So that was another reason to kill off the bikes quickly, right? So that we can get in, we can kill off the bikes quickly, and then we can score easily points on Relentless Assault. Now, I made some comments regarding your list and YouTube comments of yesterday's video as I missed the stream. I did see some comments from you, Highland. But yeah, I mean, Rizal says, I personally prefer to play each chapter to its lore and strengths. That often means the unique units. I mean, I guess that's fine for some people if you have a lot of money and or models. But for me, I'm very committed to playing Blood Angels, and I'm very committed to winning with Blood Angels. So I guess we just go around... we just have to make Blood Angels work as it is in 9th edition. So, next game I was up against here was Sisters of Battle. And let me just move this in a tiny bit. I think it was getting cut off. So again, against the Sisters of Battle list, again, I'm going to call this a castle-style deployment. Of course, it's moved on both slides, isn't it? I only made these slides last night. I'm sorry, because we were used to doing battles on Monday night, right? So again, I'm going to call this a castle-style deployment where I've got everything close together, and you can see here the Sanguinary Priest is positioned very closely within things that he can see to shoot at, right? So if he can see my Centurions, they're going to be within 3 inches of the Sanguinary Priest. If he can see any other unit, that was really the plan here. And the thing, like, some people ask me, like, how you deploy against certain armies or whatever, and I think it's important in your deployment to have certain units. Like, I always want my Redemptors to be at full health to fire on the enemy in turn 1, whether or not I go have the first turn, right? So the Redemptors are always going to be hidden. The attack bikes are usually always going to be hidden, right? You know, they have a 14-inch move, they have 24-inch range. Most of these deployments now are around 24 inches apart. So, you know, we have the attack bikes where they can definitely get to shoot on the enemy in turn 1, but they're not going to be able to be shot at. You know, you have to move some units out, right? Like, you can't stay in your board quarter and castle and do nothing. So I like to screen at the front of my units with the Centurions, with the Blade Guard veterans, and I think you can do that. You could do that with the Redemptors as well if you wanted to, but I'm trying to... I have a Librarian in there that I want to raise Psychic Fortress with, and in an ideal world, if I go first, I'll move forward, you know, 6 inches or something, like nothing crazy. Sometimes I maybe advance Centurions, sometimes I maybe advance Blade Guard veterans and like a Psyker, but I'll move forward a little bit. I'll raise a Psychic Fortress. That doesn't always happen. This week it failed twice, even with the rerolls. I'll try and have my Priest position, so every single unit in my army is going to get that Feel No Pain if they get shot at. And then I'll try and make sure that my heavy armor is reasonably defensively positioned. And I guess this is one of the reasons to have the Infiltrators start maybe in my deployment zone as well, to help, you know, ensure that my deployment zone stays free or stays safe for a little while. And let me answer a couple of questions. How do you choose between Relentless Assault and Linebreaker of these fast armies and deep strike armies? I mean, I don't typically take Linebreaker. I mean, 2 units in the enemy deployment zone is quite a big investment. Sometimes, I guess, if you take Relentless Assault, you get into a horrible position where you end up having to throw units into the enemy's deployment zone to get points. I typically try not take those objectives against armies that can deal with it, right? And I guess, yeah, in this battle against the Sisters, we didn't actually take either of those. And I guess it all just comes down to, like, how easy is for the opponent to... Like, if you take Relentless Assault, how easy it is for the opponent to get some units into your deployment zone. If that's easy, then Relentless Assault is risky, you know? You need to basically take it either if you're going to screen your deployment, or if it's difficult for them to do that. And I guess it's not so relevant with Linebreaker, but I mean, I guess Linebreaker is a bigger investment in that if the enemy is going to move out of their deployment zone, you're going to essentially lose hundreds of points of units just standing idle in their deployment zone. It's not ideal. So you have to be really smart, I guess, when you pick Relentless Assault or Linebreaker. Hey, AR, thanks for tuning in. How are you? So all these lists as well are in this spreadsheet, so you can actually look at the list. But this Sisters of Battle list was 2 rhinos full of Repentia. And then arriving in Deep Strike, there was Zerafin, there was Retributors times, I think it was 2 times Zerafin, 2 times Retributors, and 1 Seraphin. So he had about 1,000 points of Deep Strike. And having played Sisters of Battle a bunch of times, both the Repentia and the Zerafin, are super scary in melee combat, right? Like, they will wipe out just about anything they charge into. So in this game, I actually had my Sanguinary Guard position in this piece of terrain, and they stayed there for pretty much the entire game. If you watch the game, I think the Sanguinary Guard stayed in this piece of terrain until turn 3, or maybe even it was turn 4, because he actually picked Linebreaker and something else that he needed to be in my deployment zone for. So I kept my Sanguinary Guard defensively placed in here. If they do come out and he can ever make a charge on the from the Repentia, remember the Repentia can move 3 inches out the Rhino, they can move another 6, so that's 9 inches, they can then advance up to 6, usually it will be a 6 because of Miracle Dice, and then they can charge another 2d6. So potentially the Repentia have a 27-inch threat range coming out those Rhinos. So if you think the deployment zones start about 24 inches apart, then that means he can turn 1 charge you with both squads of Repentia. Well, 1 squad, because you can only advance 1 squad because it's a stratagem. But yeah, he can charge you turn 1 with Repentia, and they will pretty much delete anything that they get into. So my tactic against the Sisters of Battle, and I guess you could do this with any unit that has Flamers, I was going to try and move my Centurions into the middle of the board, trying to make sure they're at least 12 inches away from any cover, so he can never get a 12-inch charge on me from an obscuring position. So if he wants to charge me, he's going to have to hit into my Centurions, and he's likely going to have to take their Flamer fire. So that was the plan here. And it kind of worked fine. I actually managed to pop one of these Rhinos and kill like a ton of Repentia in turn 1 with the Attack Bikes and the Dreadnoughts. And then there was a melee in the middle that got a bit messy with Repentia, but it ended up being fine. And I mean, you can watch all these games on the channel as well. So, yeah, again, I guess, like, I really thought in this game, right, like, I really need to protect my backfield because he has 5 deep striking units. Sometimes it might have been possible to have my infiltrator start, on another objective, get me some points straight away, maybe raise a banner or get me some points for all fronts. But, yeah, my thought was go after Rhinos, go after Repentias, and protect my backfield. And again, this was a sound stratagem. And do you know what? We've actually played the Sisters again since then. Way down here we played the Sisters. And while I don't have the secondaries on this slide, we did have another game against the Sisters. And I guess it was a similar map again. You can see a castle deployment here. Infiltrators around the Whirlwind, really just preventing him killing the Whirlwind. Whirlwind is very useful against the Sisters, against the Repentia, against the Zerafin. I really wanted to keep it alive and make sure if they were ever a valid target, that then I could make them fight last. Whirlwind also does kill Sisters of Battle in its strength 6, so it does wound on 2s. So that's something. Again, just about everything you can see here is trying to be placed obscured. I actually went first in this game, and I think both my Dreadnoughts moved out. We managed to blow up. This is one of those new sister tanks with the... it's one of those new sister tanks with the double multi-meltas on it. So we managed to blow up one of those. Inside it was a squad of guys full of multi-meltas. And we have to play the middle of the board really slowly, right? He has 2 Rhinos full of Repentia, and we absolutely have to prevent those Repentia charges. Like, if we let the Repentia charges go off, I mean, we could lose the game just based on those things. They'll kill just about any of your units that they'll get in on. So I want to keep, again, my strongest units screened. I want to return fire with my multi-metal attack bikes and my my Redemptors. And then once we actually deal with all these multi-metals and a bunch of stuff, then we're going to come in and start assassinating his toughness 3 characters. And this actually, both times against Sisters of Battle, people maybe thought it was questionable for me to pick Assassinate. And I think in one game I got 12 points, in the other game I got the full 15. And the Assassinate works out really well. Once your Blood Angels characters get in with the Sisters of Battle characters, they just murder them. But there's so much other potential threats that you have to deal with sisters. You know, the characters don't cost much at all. They're like 40 points a model, right? It's like it's the Repentia, it's the Zeraphim, it's the Retributors. All these things can dish out a horrendous amount of damage. And in this list, he actually had St. Catherine hiding back here, and she just gives them so many miracle dice. This was a really, really tough game. It was kind of on the edge of the knife for a little bit. I think this was the game we were 35 victory points behind in turn 4, or was it? Might have not been it. Maybe it was one of the other ones, but we were a long way behind in either this game or the Necron game. And in this game, we actually lost our Centurions in turn 1. We took them out. They did have the Feel No Pain, but Psychic Fortress failed, and he managed to multi-melt them off the table, which was really unfortunate. But yeah, we'll have a full breakdown of this battle in the next coming weeks. While we're not playing any battles, I'll make some breakdowns of the battles that were played. You can see here this was on the other channel, the Classic Crackhouse channel. So we'll break down some of those battles and talk about like how, you know, just because Sisters are arguably one of the strongest lists, or I mean, now they've got all these new releases, they might actually be even stronger. I guess we'll have to see what comes with their codex. But yeah, give me 1 second, excuse me. Okay, so I think you can probably see a pattern with my deployments, right? Like, we're trying to deploy where we're in a good defensible position. We're not going to set up any sort of turn 1 charges. We can move our units out of cover and shoot effectively if we need to, which we probably always want to. Do you ever consider a Vindicator with these characters? You know, I like the Vindicator Assassin, but I like Assassins in general. I think Calidus works best for Blood Angels, but I'm running 4 HQs, and I think all 4 of the HQs I'm running are pretty good. The Chapter Master, the Librarian, the Sanguinary Priest, and I guess I'm going to be running a Librarian Dreadnought after. Never thought I'd see the day Sisters meta. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly... I think they're pretty strong right now with their new characters and their new options. It's going to be pretty interesting. And, you know, Andrew, who I play against, is going to be making Sisters his main force. So we'll get a lot of close games on Sisters. And this game was probably too close for comfort. But, I mean, the Sisters just deal out so much damage. Really, thanks for Rainbow Pen. Yes, thank you for subscribing, brother. Yeah, so the Sisters just deal out so much damage at the moment, right? Like, Ian, thank you for subscribing. So, yeah, I guess, like, trying to set up some sort of castle where, like, I can react to things. And another thing that you'll see a lot... Alright, Metalhead, thank you for subscribing. Here we go, subscriber central, I guess. My stream must have popped up somewhere on YouTube or something, and it's now people are seeing it. Mike, thank you. Sanguinary Guard. You'll notice as well in a few of the games we've looked at, my Sanguinary Guard are always hiding in the early game, right? Like, they're 100% hiding, and they do not even move out of cover. And the reason that I like to hide them, there's 2 reasons, right? Sanguinary Guard are best when they make the charge, 100%, right? And they also have that brilliant 6-inch heroic intervention. Now, in this map, there's no terrain in the middle. But what I like to do is, if there was another piece of terrain like here, I guess a few people are subscribing. Thank you. If there was another piece of obscuring terrain like this in the middle of the board, then I would probably either jump them and advance them into the obscuring terrain, and leave them there. And try and keep them 1 inch from the wall as well, so they cannot be charged effectively, or you cannot charge the wall and effectively get into them. But I think I keep them till I need to unleash them, or I... Okay, this is ridiculous. Is that these are YouTube subscribers, because I think Twitch says has just followed. But yeah, I mean, I guess we just popped onto the front page of YouTube for a minute or something. Yeah, okay, so Sanguinary Guard, hidden.
And, remember when you make your 12-inch move from the Sanguinary Guard, and if you think about this map, 12 inches is pretty much going to get them to center board. Vertical distance isn't included, right? So you'll be able to move 12 inches to the middle of the board. So if he comes anywhere near the middle, which we're kind of hoping he does, then we'll engage with the Sanguinary Guard. If he wants to engage on us, on our side of the board, if we haven't suppression fired him, it gives us the option for the heroic intervention of the Sanguinary Guard. And I like having the Sanguinary Guard alive at the end of the game, right? They do so much work once you get that extra attack and extra AP from Savage Echoes. So running them out earlier in the game doesn't always get me the results that I want. So I'll sit them defensively if I have to. We need you at 10k. Yeah, no, I want knock it. I appreciate every subscriber. So again, this battle hasn't been on my channel yet. It'll be coming though, and you'll be able to see how we deal against. So this was 2 Sisters of Battle tanks. These are the new tanks. I guess they're called Infernuses or something. I don't remember the name of them actually. I feel like they're called Infernuses. Does anyone know the name of those new Sisters tanks? Let me think. They're basically a Rhino with multi-meltas on them. I guess they're probably heavy support. Or not? Or the dedicated transport? Immolators. Yeah, I thought they were something like that. Yeah, so an Immolator is a single model equipped with Immolation Flamers, but each Immolation Flamer can be equipped with 2 multi-meltas. So basically, and they can still transport 6 Sisters of Battle. So basically what he has is 6 Sisters of Battle in the transport, all like 5 with multi-meltas and a banner, and each tank has multi-meltas. So I guess this list, and each of his Sisters of Battle squad in this list has 2 Sherbs with them. So you're looking at, once they pile out, I guess you're looking at like 12 Melta shots per squad. So that gives them 24 Melta shots, and then 4 from each tank. So yeah, like 32 multi-Melta shots. And that doesn't even cost them that many points. Like maybe like 500-600 points for 32 multi-Melta shots. I know how you don't like to throw away any units. Too many top players just suicide their units into turn 1 smash, but it's do or die, and it's not we'll lose if the smash fails, says Highland Phoenix. Yeah, I mean, it's very true. I play my army cautiously, and I build my units to survive, and maybe, it's definitely different to what a lot of other Blood Angels players play, but I mean, the two lists we've built, the 2 successful lists we've built in 9th edition so far have 19 games between them and 0 defeats, right? And we're building a 3rd list at the moment, so I reckon we can do something like the same. So we can probably have like 30 games with 0 defeats on our 3 different 9th edition lists. They're all sort of built around that same principle of like, you know how everybody calls it like always be charging? Maybe my list should be called like, you know that phrase like don't call us, we'll call you? Like, don't charge us, we'll charge you. So that's kind of how I build the lists, I guess. So let's jump on, like, have a look at some other deployments. And I think this Tyranids one would be interesting to look at next. And again, this was like a battle line style map where we're in those sort of corner deployments. And this Tyranid list, I'm just going to bring up the list because I can never remember how you say these things. So he had 2 Demaricons. I'm never going to say those things right. But those, will you stream the list building, or is it mostly done? I will go over the list in a video, Frank. I mean, I can go over the list today if people want to see it. But yeah, my new list is mostly done, yeah. But it's very similar to this list that just went 12 wins in a row or whatever, like there's only 2 small changes. They're kind of superficial. So this Tyranids list had 2 Demaricons. It had like 2 Scythe Hierodules, and he also had 6 Hive Guard with their indirect fire, and I'm trying to find it. He had a Swarm Lord, which is basically like a Hive Tyrant, right? So this was a very, very fighty Tyranids list. It wanted to be in close combat. It wanted to eat my guys alive. And so in this one, I've kind of got a spread deployment, I guess. And the reason I think behind the spread deployment was twofold, I guess, right? There isn't enough cover in my deployment zone, really, to hide everything. And at the same time, I kind of wanted to be able to get out and get some of these objectives, right? It was a 6 objective map. I kind of need the strength of the castle. Like, I need my units to be protected, especially from these massive melee threats that he has. These melee threats can pretty much rip anything that I have apart in a single turn. But also, he has some not bad shooting, and he has some indirect fire as well. So I kind of need to have my units spread, I guess. And this was kind of the thought behind that, right? And typically when we're playing on a 6 objective map like this, I will try and focus on like one side of the map, right? And you'll see this in some of my other games as well, where like you don't want to spread yourself too thin, but you don't want to make it too obvious that you're going to focus on one side of the map. But at the same time, so what you're trying to do here, and I guess what I'm seeing here is like big firing arcs, right? You've got a lovely firing arc like down here. You've got a nice firing arc down here. You also have a nice firing arc across this way, I guess. So if these dreadnoughts and the tap bites can move into this section here, maybe sit here, hold this objective, they would be able to shoot pretty much everything all the way across the board. And then, again, I felt like the whirlwind was going to be key here. And I guess what I mean by castle, man, is have everything protected together. And I like to cast Psychic Fortress in turn 1, and sometimes turn 2. I think it's such a strong power from your Psyker, especially when Blood Angels don't have. We have a bunch of units that don't have invulnerable saves, right? Like in this list, I have Attack Bikes, Redemptor Dreadnoughts, Centurions, Sanguinary Guard. None of these have invulnerable saves, and I guess even my Priest doesn't have invulnerable save, or even the Whirlwind doesn't have invulnerable save as well. So I guess what I mean by castle is everybody in this list is going to be within 6 inches of that librarian in turn 1, and that is going to be my castle of power. So everybody around the librarian is going to get that 5+ feel no pain. 5+ invulnerable save from the Psychic Fortress, right? And typically in turn 1, the enemy is not really going to have a Psyker within 24 inches to deny it. And if you go first, or even if you go second, you should be able to position your Psyker so he's like 21.2 inches away from the enemy Psyker, so he cannot deny it. And it's only a warp charge of 6. I know this week with the rerolls it failed, or last week it failed, but most of the time, a 6 with a reroll is going to be valuable. So I'd always cast a Psychic Fortress in turn 1. I have my castle around that, so my Redemptor Dreadnoughts, Redemptor Dreadnoughts with their 13 wounds and Duty Eternal, the thing that they're weak on is they have no invulnerable save, right? So I'm creating this castle to grant me the strengths that I don't normally have, or I need, I guess. And my other thing with this castle is I will have my Sanguinary Priest tucked in behind here as well, next to the Blade Guard Veterans, next to the Centurions, next to the Redemptors, and usually I'll be giving my 6+ Feel No Pain aura to the Centurions, the Blade Guard Veterans, maybe the Sanguinary Guard, maybe the Bikers. Usually I'm getting it on like 3 different units. Sometimes you can get it on all 4, if the map allows for it. And giving them, the Feel No Pain, especially like Centurions are tough models to kill anyway. If you give them a 5+ invulnerable save and a 6+ Feel No Pain, and then if they don't finish the squad, you're rezzing them and healing them, and the same for the Attack Bikes. I get a lot of value out of that. And this is why I actually don't mind. Like most people would run a Librarian with a jump pack. I'm running mine in a Terminator armor, and I actually don't mind that so much because I'm playing it a bit more defensively maybe than most other people. Most other people are jumping across the board very quickly. I'm creating this castle, and usually within that castle I'll also have my Chapter Master, who I like to hang around for a couple of turns. At the beginning of the game, I'll get like 2 turns with my Chapter Master with that castle. So you'll be giving rerolls typically to the bikes or a dreadnought, and you'll be giving everything else in a 6-inch bubble reroll ones on hits, right? We get a lot of value out of that. So this list against the Tyranids we were pretty much set up to. We cast as much as we like, but it is still quite quite a defensive deployment. And then again, the deployment was kind of set up to try and prevent charges, right? Because he has some horrendously strong melee units, and we didn't want to be charged by them. He did hit us with a couple of charges. A librarian with jump pack seems redundant because of wings. I mean, the librarian with jump pack is more reliable, right, than the wings version. I guess that's the one thing to keep in mind, right? Because wings is a warp charge of 6, and you can fail wings, whereas you can't fail a jump. So I guess that's why some people would prefer it, because of the reliability, and I can understand that. And I actually don't think the Terminator armor makes the librarian all that much more survivable, but I mean, it does help a bit. So yeah, this was a castle style deployment again, or a bit of a defensive deployment, and we won this game pretty convincingly. I don't know if I did have my secondaries, so I'd bring it down, Scramblers and Relentless Assault. And Relentless Assault worked well in this one because he's going to have to push into melee, and he's got all big beasties, right? So he can't really leave those big beasts in his deployment zone to counter me for Relentless Assault. So I actually threw, and in most of my games, the one unit I start off the board is 5 Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws. I mean, I have the option to start more stuff off the board as well, like the Sanguinary Guard, but typically the Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws will always start off the board. So I knew that all I needed to do was drop them down in his deployment zone, and it was going to be some easy points. Now, he did end up using Ripper Swarms to try and bring them up in my deployment zone and counter my Relentless Assault, but Rippers aren't that strong. I was able to counter that with like my Infiltrators and my Whirlwind, I think, in a turn. And yeah, I mean, I guess if you watch any of these battles on my channel, you will see a huge swing in VP in turns 3, 4, and 5. I want to say that like in 7 or 8 of these games, we've been behind significantly when turn 3 kicks around, and some of them we've been behind significantly in turn 4 as well. But yeah, we always, by building your list for survivability and taking the early game slow, I guess, then exploding into multiple charges. So I mean, here's the thing. In turn 3, for example, I usually want to be charging the enemy with like 4 or 5 units, right? You want to make it difficult for them if they're going to counter offensive, and we also get our biggest power spike in turn 3. So if you don't make any charges in turn 1 and 2, I'm actually okay with that, as long as you're set up to make like 5 charges in turn 3, because typically units that we charge will die. And I guess strategic use of that suppression fire, remember that you cannot use counter-offensive on a unit that has been suppression fired by the Whirlwind. They FAQ'd that. So if you were going to charge, let's say, 5 charges across the battlefield, and you thought, I really want to charge those Repentia, but I know the Repentia will kill me, he'll pay to interrupt with Repentia and they will kill me, whereas I'm pretty confident in the rest of my charges, then suppression prior to the Repentia, they cannot counter-offensive. It costs you 1 CP, then you basically get a fight first everywhere across the board. Sure, maybe he's going to interrupt you with some Battle Sisters, but you're not worried about that, right? So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's going to be what you're going to see typically on this channel. Me playing the game a little bit slower, maybe, than some of the other players, and but we're always getting results, right? The slow play doesn't matter. We still outscore the enemy considerably every game. And I want to talk a little bit about this game then, actually. And this is a key game for slow play, right? So this was against World Eaters. And again, a spread deployment, like across the front lines, but kind of defensive, right? In that the Sanguinary Guard are, again, not on the front lines. They're ready for any sort of counter-charge, counter-offensive. We have the Whirlwind in the back, kind of screening out our backfield. And this is actually a screenshot after we sort of, I believe this is like turn 1, because the Blade Guard have moved up here a little bit, and we have our Death Company bikes sitting over here on this objective. Now, I went first against the World Eaters, and my plan was to kill some of these rhinos. And the priority really in this game was to kill the rhinos. He had 2 rhinos full of berserkers. And if you fought berserkers before, they're insane. They get so many attacks, and then they get to fight again before you fight. So imagine a squad of Sangre Guard getting to fight twice before you fight, essentially. I mean, they're only 1 damage weapons, but still, it's a horrific number of 1 damage weapons that you have to deal with Berserkers. And then he can pay 2 CP to have them fight again. So when we were selecting secondaries for this battle, someone actually said in the chat, I don't remember who it was, but someone said, let's take domination, and like, because they were thinking it's five objectives, I can probably hold the middle maybe, and I can outscore via domination. But that would have been the wrong call, in my opinion, because I cannot to win this game, I basically cannot let the Berserkers charge me. If I can stop that, I win the game pretty easily, I feel like, because you wouldn't think it, but the Berserkers are the scariest thing in the list, in my opinion, right now for World Eaters. So, secondaries, this one was priority targets, and priority targets is kind of a dumb one in that you just hold the one in your objective and you get 15 points. So we did that, and then we were just going to score Scramblers, which is easy, and we're going to get in his deployment again, which is kind of easy, because he's a World Eater's army, he's going to run straight at us. We know that's how they play. So, the 2 Rhinos are full of Berserkers, and he also had a Termite drill full of Berserkers. We can talk about Death Guard in a minute. We've got like 3 battles against Death Guard, which I have screenshots through for AR. We'll come to Death Guard next. Let me just wrap up some World Eater stuff. So how we beat this World Eater's army is we pop all his Rhinos, and you can see here there's already a dice in one of these Rhinos, right? We already had shot it at this point, and we were trying to delete these Rhinos before the Berserkers come in. And I think what actually happened in this game is both the Rhinos moved to center table. Berserkers did manage to take out my Death Company captain. They took out him very easily, actually, you know. But we ended up doing well enough elsewhere on the board and killing enough stuff that it was fine. But I think he only managed to make 1 charge. So he had 3 squads of Berserkers and 3 transports. And he only managed to make 1 charge in the entire game. And the charge he made, he did kill all my units, or he killed my Death Company captain. So stopping those Berserkers charging is like so important against World Eaters. If you can do that, I mean, that's half their damage output right there. So you're basically going to half their damage output. And, yeah, I mean, like, I literally deployed... in turn 1 here, I actually moved these bikes to try and be 24 inches away from the Rhinos and shoot them. But I actually messed up, and one of these bikes was actually, like, 25 inches away from the Rhino, so it couldn't even shoot. So we could have actually done a bit more damage here. But I was so focused on getting, like, my units at maximum range, so that I knew that I could delete the most powerful threats he had before they even get to charge me, right? So I guess domination on this map would have been very difficult to do, because I would have had to put something in the middle of the board. The Berserkers would have charged whatever I had in the middle, and I would have lost the game pretty horribly. Michael says, you're right about late game VP. I had a lot of luck with all infantry 2,000 point lists against local friends, because I'm positioned to make charge turn 3 and a VP surplus in turns 3 to 5. Yeah, and I think I'm enjoying playing Blood Angels like that. I really am. And I guess this is why all my lists talk about like 500 points of shooting in your list, right? And in my list, I achieve that by 3 attack bikes and 2 redemptors. I wouldn't class the whirlwind as shooting. The whirlwind is there for 1 job, and that is suppression fire. If the whirlwind kills some stuff, it's a bonus, but I don't think it's a shooting model really. And this is why I don't recommend pending the points for the Vengeance launcher. I think it's fine with the Castellan launcher. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Death Guard then. And we've played a bunch of Death Guard lists on this channel now, and different maps and different tactics here. So let's talk about this first game against Death Guard. And this game against Death Guard was kind of strange in that it was a 6 map deployment, or a 6 objective deployment, and my friend who plays Death Guard was going to go after my deployment zone and cast, I forget the name of the secondary. The one, is it called Psychic Ritual, where you cast it and you get 4 victory points if you do it in the enemy deployment zone. So he was gonna run his forces straight forward and get into my deployment zone, and in turn that's actually going to counter my relentless assault, right? Because like if he has got multiple units in my deployment zone, then I'm going to have a lot in his to get my relentless assault. So this was a strange game where once I saw that he was going all on one flank, I wasn't really sure what to think as he started to deploy on this one flank. But I sort of set up my castle in the centre board, right? I'd picked Oath of Moment, so I kind of have to have the centre. And down here, hidden, you can see we have some infiltrators starting out the game in the middle, and that will be helping me for deploy scramblers. So in this game, it was strange in that I moved around the table like this and took everything on this side. And I think at the end of the game, I held actually all 5 objectives except the one that he'd absolutely fired forward to get. And he had Mortarion in this game, but like I kind of looked at the list that he had with Mortarion, and I kind of gave myself a priority of targets that I wanted to deal with. And I wanted to deal with the Plague Burst Crawlers, because Plague Burst Crawlers, I think, right now are really great. You know, the indirect fire doing flat 2 damage. There are other guns doing D3+3. I mean, they're like glass cannons, but better. I also wanted to deal with this fetid bloat drones, and I believe he had 2 of them, because they're 12 attacks on the charge. They just wreck infantry. You know, they also basically extend that contagion range. You know, he just uses them to run in, hopefully kill something, and then you're all in his contagion range. And also he had a Demon Prince. So my plan for this game was to keep the Whirlwind pretty far away and just use suppression fire on Mortarion, so that if Mortarion was gonna end up charging me, then I was gonna at least fight first and do some damage to him that way. And this game was a strange one. We did win it, and it was actually quite a solid win actually here, even with him shutting me down a little bit in secondaries. Hey Carrie, no problem, thanks for watching. So I took off the targets, the Plague Burst Crawlers, the Fetid Bloat Drones, and the Demon Prince, and I think in turn 1 we pretty much shot out the Demon Prince with Multi-Meltas. I guess he positioned him so he was the closest enemy model, which I guess was bad positioning on Colin's part, but nonetheless we killed him. Then we went to work on both Plague Burst Crawlers. Then I think we killed one of the Fetid Bloat Drones at range and one of the other ones in melee. And Mortarion at the end of the game, I think, was on like, he lost like 2 wounds or something. So he was on like 16 of 18 wounds, but he was shut down in a corner. He was 500 points. He was suppressed every turn. He did do some good saves on Mortarion. Like, I think he deserved to take a bit more than 2 wounds. But it didn't matter, because we had units on all other 5 objectives, and we won the game convincingly. So this was a Death Guard list with Mortarion, and it wasn't a close game, I guess. Like, we did pretty well against this. Now, we had another Death Guard game. Maybe there's actually 2 of them. And this was a super close game on Death Guard. So this was the game that we just ran last week, yes, last Monday night, where we finally went 11 wins in a row with this list. And let me just hide myself for 1 second. So we had Secondaries, Oath, Scramblers, and Engage. And again, against this Death Guard list, right, I didn't feel like I needed to be very obscured, right? Like, most of this Death Guard list is slow in melee. And he did have a ton of Terminators. I think he had 16 Terminators in Deep Strike. So my thought behind this deployment was to just have a spread. And this map was actually really bad for me, because you can see like the firing arcs are not good at all. There's a small firing arc through here. I guess there's a slightly bigger firing arc through here. But there was a lot of cover. Especially the middle of the map was actually... It's not often you hear me complain about there being too much cover on the map. But normally we love the cover. But against Death Guard with my list here, I felt like a little bit less cover would have been beneficial. But nonetheless, again, I decided to, like, I guess when I'm making these games and I'm playing these armies, the first thing I'm doing is creating like a priority in my head, like I need to get done. And I guess with 16 Terminators arriving from Deep Strike, I guess what I need to try and do, the most important thing for me, I suppose, is going to be controlling where those Terminators arrive on the board, right? So the Whirlwind, you can't see it, but it's behind this building, and it was basically zoning out that back corner and that objective there. The Infiltrators were over, they started the game over in this corner, again zoning out kind of the whole backfield area here. And then my idea was to try and maybe he could... My idea really was to guerrilla tactics over here and stop him coming in on this side of the board at all, and maybe force him to just come in centre board or in the middle. And the best firing arc I could find on the map would have been almost from like this back objective here down the way, seeing through the middle, seeing down this line almost to this objective. So that's where we ended up. We ended up with our dreadnoughts. I think both of them were over on this side here. I think one of them died, but I think they were both over on this side. The multi attack bikes were pretty much full health over on this side. We went for a bit of a melee in the middle, and we controlled this objective. And when he did bring in his Terminators, they ended up coming in all along one side of the board. And because Terminators are obviously slow, we know this, we were actually able to outplay the Terminators with the speed of the list and win the game based on that. There was a couple of mistakes I made in this game, like 2 points. It should have, in the middle of the board, I actually assassinated one of his characters. And it was a Psyker, whereas I should have assassinated the Foul Blight Spawn, and it was kind of a big mistake because the Foul Blight Spawn made it so difficult for me in a couple of combat phases after that. So I could have lost this game based on I assassinated the wrong character with my chapter master. But I guess the thing that for me anyway was this was the 5th game in a row we won against Death Guard, right? And I think it's 2 games with a Mortarion and 3 games with a bunch of Terminators. We're just talking about last Monday's game. Tony and Gitley, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you're well. The tactic against Death Guard this time, with 16 Terminators and Deep Strike, was screen the backfield, kill the bloat drones because they put me at toughness 3 at range, and then use the speed of the Blood Angels army to choose the engagements across the battle. And really, another priority here should have been kill the Foul Blight Spawn, because not killing the Foul Blight Spawn was a big mistake and almost cost us the game. But once the 16 Terminators arrived, I think I mopped up everything. I did. I killed everything that he had on the board over here. So I killed the Demon Prince, both fetid bloat drones. I killed 10 Possessed. I killed 3 squads of Plague Marines. I killed the Psyker. I did kill the Foul Blight Spawn eventually, and I did kill the Sloppity Bile Spawn. I don't even know what that character does. He's always just there. And yeah, Colin tried desperately to run away from a Dreadnought in close combat, which we kind of let him off with, but I don't think it was valid. So maybe it would have been a few more points if he didn't do. He tried to move some models under terrain, and it all got very muddled because it was difficult to see the models under the terrain. But I don't think it was a valid move. But anyway, we moved from left to right here, and we killed everything, and we controlled at the end of the game this objective, and I believe we controlled the middle. He did steal the middle from me on the final turn because he charged me. And do you know what? In that final turn, I could have positioned my guys better as well. I think I could have probably actually used my final CP for a reroll. I think I could have used my final CP to suppression fire the Death Shroud, and we could have taken the game a little bit stronger like that as well. But sometimes when you're winning a game, I find anyway, I put a lot of effort into playing well and winning the game, but once I start winning, sometimes my play can get a little bit more sloppy. I don't think as hard, I don't try as hard. So I've noticed that with my play, and I'm going to try and make sure we don't, because a couple of these games where it's been a big sigh of relief when I've won it personally, right, because I'm wanting to keep winning. So I swore it said Blood Angel strategy just cheating. Yeah, maybe it should say just chatting, but I mean we aren't cheating. So yeah. So this game against Death Guard was the closest yet, but it was the 5th win in a row against them, and I am planning on changing this list a little bit. The 1 damage from the Teeth of Terra is kind of weak against Death Guard. So, and I guess this list that I'm playing is an all persons list, right? It wasn't planned just to beat Death Guard. The facial expression you had was priceless. $2. Thank you very much, AR. So yeah, my list wasn't tailored against Death Guard, but the list does have a good amount of 3 damage weapons, and we are giving that a little bit more emphasis now in terms of like when we're reviewing Blood Angels armies, we are looking at the number of 3 damage weapons in the list. And you know, some of the lists that won tournaments only had like 5 or 6 3 damage weapons in them. You know, we did a tournament list, I think, that just had 6 eradicators. So I mean, you can get away with less, but I like to include slightly more. And I also think in my new list I'm going to include slightly more OBSEC, probably Rites of War, potentially. I can't decide, I'm right on the fence with that one. Librarian with Rites of War or not Rites of War, I guess, is the big question. You know, Tony, I think, submitted a list on Sunday where he had the Librarian Dreadnought with the Iron Resolve, and I generally really like Iron Resolve on the Librarian Dreadnought, but I just wonder if I need to include Rites of War. It's a tough one. Did I? Yeah, I mean, there was no way he could move away AR. I'll show you at one point what happened, but like I was trying to explain on stream, like all his models were literally 1 millimeter away. You cannot. You have to move closer to the closest model. So there's no way he could move and then end up like with a model behind. It was ridiculous. How do you play with eradicators instead of attack bikes? Do you put them in transports? No, I don't think you put them in transports. I think you deploy them in cover to give you that +1 save, maybe up high on a building or something. And there is a stratagem, I forget what it's called because I don't run eradicators, I prefer the bikes myself. But there's a stratagem, it's kind of expensive, but I mean, 2 CP I believe, and you can still move and shoot as though you never moved. It's called Uncompromising Fire, I think. No, Steady Advance, that's the one. Use the stratagem in movement phase when an Adeptus infantry unit from your army makes a normal move until the end of the turn. The unit is considered to have remained stationary. So if you want to run 2 squads of eradicators, you could pay Uncompromising Fire on Steady Advance on one of them, and then you could use Chapter Mastery rolls on the others. So you could still get a pretty reliable shooting phase with both squads of eradicators moving, and they are assault, right? So you can, their metal guns are assault, so you can assault them, and you can, you know, you can still do fairly decently that way. So I don't know. I mean, eradicators are still good for the points. I'd probably keep them with assault guns because they'd be quite immobile with the heavies, but the heavies do perform amazingly. You know, it's like half range. They're basically half range multi-melters. Like the damage output from the heavies is really good. I can see the benefit of Rites of War, but only if the Dread's going to be supporting my other troops. Iron Resolve means I can let the Librarian run about on his own a bit better. Yeah, and maybe that's how I like to run him, Tony, because I quite often have my Death Company captain run around on his own, don't I? So I imagine I want the Librarian Dreadnought to be doing similar things. You know, stealing an objective here or there, or whatever, and he can still pop smoke, you know, so he is, I guess maybe Iron Resolve needs to stay on the Librarian Dreadnought. That extra wound is not that big deal, but it is an extra wound with Duty Eternal, so it's kind of like 2 wounds, right? So yeah, Death Guard, I guess if you're going to be fighting Death Guard, we know they're super strong. You need to have a priority of things to kill. I think one of the main priorities needs to be bloat drones, because you cannot let them run into your army and suddenly lower all your toughness. If they have Plague Burst Crawlers, you need to deal with them pretty quickly as well. I think point for point Plague Burst Crawler, like I would, if I was a Death Guard player, I'd be running 3 Plague Burst Crawlers. I kind of think they're almost like Redemptors, you know. They have a 3+ save, they have a 5+ invulnerable save, they have toughness 8, they have indirect fire, they have a decent movement. I just think Plague Burst Crawlers are really, really good for their points costs. So I guess like if you're going to be fighting, Death Guard, make yourself a priority, and against different lists, you know, think about it. So on this list, it was obviously Terminators, 16 of them arriving from Deep Strike. We were going to prioritize making sure that they didn't get where they needed to do, and or against Mortarion we were going to do some suppression fire. Now, I thought maybe there was one more game against Death Guard. Maybe I don't have any... Maybe there wasn't one more game against Death Guard. So we've talked Sisters. Let's talk Necrons for a minute, because this was actually the closest game we had, where we only won by 1 victory point. What's the role of Centurions in your list? I don't see many people running them, says Richard. Yeah, so no one's running Centurions. And if you think about it, 165 points for Centurions, there's a lot you can do with the same 165 points, right? You could run 3 more attack bikes with multi-meltas. You could almost run another Redemptor Dreadnought. You could run 5 Sanguinary Guard with, like, you know, get a couple of Infernal Pistols in there. You could run 6 more Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws, and I think all those things are valid, right? And I think I like all of them. You know, like, I like Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws. I think 168 points would be the cost of 5 of them. 6 of them, sorry. I guess you could have one without a chainsword. You could even run a small Terminator squad, a 5-man Terminator squad. So the Centurions are a direct counter to, I guess, Repentia from Sisters of Battle. You know, Repentia are not going to be able to charge Centurions because of the 66 Flamer shots. Centurions are also going to do pretty well against Death Guard in that their drills are 3 damage flat, and or Dreadnoughts. They're hitting at strength 10, and they're -5. So I guess with Null Zone, if you have the Centurions, and a nice thing about the Centurions, I guess, is they normally just have a 2+ save, right? So Null Zone makes them no worse. So they still have just their 2+ save. If you get a Null Zone off next to the Centurions, no one's getting an armor save, because they're -5 once you get to turn 3, and they are flat 3 damage. And a squad of them gets 16 attacks, and they hit and they wound pretty much everything in the game on 2s. So they are slow. But the other interesting thing is, if you do put them in that fortress, the Psychic Fortress, to give them the 5+ Feel No Pain, they're basically toughness 5 Terminators, like the Death Guard, I guess, which are very difficult to shift. If you have that Sanguinary Priest around them, giving them that 6+ Feel No Pain, again, they're even difficulter to shift. Resurrecting a 55-point Centurion model each turn is pretty darn strong as well, popping the wounds back on Centurions. And people have asked me a bunch of times about the Centurions, right? And, like, so I run Blade Guard Veterans and Centurions, and the plan is to put both of them into the middle of the map. You'll notice on most of my lists we're going to take Oath of Moment. Oath of Moment is a great scoring one. We're not actually... The one time we don't have it is this game against Necrons, but a lot of the games we take Oath of Moment, and we go to the middle of the map, and we have those Blade Guard Veterans who have their Storm Shields and their Transhumans, and we have the Centurions who have their Flamers to prevent charges and their drills to wreck stuff. And people keep asking me, they're like, how do you find the Centurions? Now, the Centurions never... I think in one game, one time, I had a charge with the full squad of Centurions still alive. And they can do 48 damage in melee in a turn, right? They inflicted like 40 damage into an enemy character, and it was like, yeah, well, he's dead. But for the most part, how it works in my list is people will shoot my Centurions. People will prioritize my Centurions almost over anything else in my army list. Now, I don't know if the Centurions deserve that level of priority. I mean, they are pretty fucking scary when you get in close combat, right? Like, how do you survive 16 strength 10 hits at -5 with a potential null zone? I guess the answer is you don't. So what happens is people put a lot of fire into my Centurions every game, and I usually end up rezzing a Centurion, or at least rezzing and healing, and I usually still lose them in turn 2. But if they are firing everything they have into the Centurions, and all my other stuff on the board is fair game to do whatever it needs to do to get me points, I actually see insane value in that. And yeah, I'm not sure the Centurions deserve that level of hate. Because arguably in close combat the Sanguinary Guard will probably do just as much damage as the Centurions. They are a lot more mobile. The Tap Bikes could do more damage probably with their Melta-Guns. Again, a lot more mobile. The Dreadnoughts can do a lot, but people are generally very scared about the Centurions. And I play a lot against Sisters of Battle, and I struggle a lot with the Repentia making those long 27-inch charges. We talked about it earlier in the stream, how Repentia, by turn 2, maybe turn 3, can almost guarantee a 27-inch charge. Because they can be in a Rhino fully protected. They jump out 3 inches, they move forward 6, they advance their 6 from their Miracle Dice, then they pay 1 CP and charge potentially 12. So 27-inch threat range. The Centurions being on my front line can basically counter that completely. Like, he's never going to charge the Centurions. So yeah, when I play against Sisters of Battle, he always is going to shoot my Centurions. So it's a interesting dilemma. Like, I've thought about changing the Centurions out a few times, because they don't typically do much damage for me, but they do seem to wither a hell of a storm. So that's where I am with them. I'm running them as cheap as I can per model, right? I don't have any heavy Hurricane Bolters in them. I just have the Flamers and the Drills. And part of it was like, I always really just wanted Centurions, right? Because we haven't been allowed them for how many editions? So we're finally allowed Centurions, and I was like, I'm going to have some Centurions. I've been wanting them ever since I saw them when I came back to the game about 3 or 4 years ago. So I've started running them, and I can't bring myself to drop them at the moment. So I hope that answers your question, Richard. I do think there are other options, and I do think other options would probably work. And you are kind of pigeonholed with the Centurions, and they're so slow. They only have that 5-inch move. You kind of have to just run them into the center of the board, because in a couple of games I've put them off on a flank, and they can just get completely like stuck on that flank for the entire game and do nothing. So you kind of have to just be committed to the Centurions are going to head for center field. You're probably going to pick Oath of Moment, right? So they're going to get you some points that way, and generally, hopefully, they're going to soak up a bunch of fire. Hydra says, I don't have 5 Blade Guards. Can I substitute them for Shield Hammer Terminators as the beefy midfield units? I think so. I mean, Shield Hammer Terminators are more survivable than Blade Guards, right? Like, they have the same number of wounds, but they have a 1+ save against the Blade Guards' 2+ save, so they're better small arm fire. And I guess if you have, like, I don't find typically that the Centurions or the Blade Guard veterans really die in a single turn. So there's always an opportunity to get some heals on them. There's always an opportunity to get a revive on them. So I guess there's that. What's the next question? Sorry. I did see your video about Mephiston v the Librarian Dreadnought. Yeah, I mean, I think the Librarian Dreadnought is just better than Mephiston at the moment. I just think he can potentially do more damage, and he's a little bit... He might not be more survivable against like small arms fire, but people typically don't shoot dreadnoughts with bolters. I mean, I guess they can, but usually that's not priority for stuff like bolters. Necrons, Rights of War, yay or nay? I mean, Rights of War will probably help me a bit in this game against Necrons, that's for sure. But I haven't decided yet if we're put... I kind of thought we were going to bring Rights of War in our new list. We're going to bring 1 OBSEC troop and 1 Rights of War. But the more I think about it, maybe we're just going to... we've won 11 games with just that 1 OBSEC troop and no Rights of War. So maybe we just don't need it. I can't decide. Maybe what we'll do is we'll run the list without it until it loses. And then when it loses, we'll try it with it until it loses. And then we'll see. I mean, it might be a while because we don't really lose games on this channel. But... that's a story for another day. Right, so this game, Necrons. Necrons with every unit in the army counting as 2 OBSEC units. For tournament play or just for killie approach. Yeah, it's a tough call, Highland. I don't know the right answer. I'm going to try both, I guess. That's probably what we're going to do next. We'll try both. So, in this game, which we only won by 1 point, he had 80 Necron warriors, and he had a bunch of other Necrons, and everything was OBSEC, and he's just going to splatter them across all the objectives on the map, right? And I guess my deployment here was a little bit back, right? You can see the deployment line is here, and I'm a few inches behind it. And the reason I am a few inches behind it is all these Necrons got a 6-inch move before the game. They can move another 6 inches. They can then for advance, and then they can shoot. So I wanted to make it just a little bit harder for him if he wanted to hit me with his guns, right? And pull him out so I could make potentially some turn 1 charges. And then the other thing that we did with this deployment is we want to be set up so we can get onto a flank. but kind of without showing that we're set up to get onto a flank, right? Because we end up doing in this game we did engage the Necrons kind of on both fronts. We had I think we had a dreadnought over here. Our Vanguard veteran squad arrived for deep strike over here, and we contested this. But we also put most of our other units. We sort of like wrapped round, trying to take them off the objectives round the side of this board, and I guess again we're in a castle position, right? You can see right in the middle there. You have my librarian. Right next to him is a sanguinary priest. If you look at this priest positioning here, actually, this sanguinary priest will be within 3 inches of these blade guard. He'll be within 3 inches of these attack bikes. He'll be within 3 inches of the sanguinary guard. He's 3 inches of the Centurions. And this is what I was talking about. Like, careful position of this sanguinary priest in the middle can potentially give your whole army or most of your army. And I guess this is why I'm calling it a castle. We are a moving castle in turn 1, where we move forward, we raise our psychic fortress, we have everything in that bubble, we do 1 round of shooting before we even think about charging. I mean, if we can end up making a turn 1 charge, great, but like it's really not on, like, it's not on my radar to force a turn 1 charge. And against a Necron army like this, what is the priority? And I've played this army before, and when I played it before, it was a super close game as well. And the priority really is remove units fully from the board so they don't get reanimation, and get objectives secured as quickly as possible. And this game was super close. It was 1 victory point, and it could have almost been turned by Andrew in the very final turn of the game. I did make 1 mistake in this game, so it could have been slightly less close, but yeah, I mean, Necrons, especially, and I guess this is why Whirlwind's almost core, right? Like, if you are going to charge one of these 20-man Necron blobs, you're going to end up facing, what is it, like 40 shots, hitting on 6s, strength 5, -2 or something. So there's enough weight of fire there with the 40 shots to end up that, like, if you charge them with a sanguinary guard, you can potentially lose 2 or 3 models easily enough. So that's one of the reasons it was kind of scary. And Thin the Ranks was good. I think it scored us 12 points that game, but actually I kind of expected it to score the whole 15. I think we killed 128 models or something in that game. I think that's why we got 12 points. Unfortunately, the Nightbringer, even though he's on 9 wounds, actually only counts for 1 point or 1 model. It's only 10 wounds or more that count for more, so we had to deal with the Nightbringer in this battle as well. But do you know what? I hadn't fought a Catan since I started bringing a Whirlwind, and the Whirlwind is like a direct counter to Catan models, right? Because the strength of the Catan is that you can only do 3 damage to them per phase. So typically, if you want to kill one entirely in your phase or your turn, what you would have to do is you'd have to do 3 wounds on it in the psychic phase, 3 wounds on it in the shooting phase, 3 wounds in the close combat phase. And that's very difficult if you only take 1 librarian. Like us, our only offensive power we've got on our librarian is smite, right? So you're basically you're hoping for that sort of 6/6 Perils of the Warp smite, right? Anything beyond that, you're probably not going to be able to do 3 damage to him in your psychic phase. However, if you suppression fire him and he charges any of your unit, as long as the units that he charges can do 3 damage to him, then in your turn you can do the other 3 in the shooting and the other 3 in the close combat, and you can remove a 400 point model from the board fairly easily. And that's exactly what we did here. He actually charged, I believe it was just 3 Blade Guard veterans, because I think he'd already killed one of them. And the 3 Blade Guard veterans being able to attack first dealt the 3 damage I needed them to do to the Nightbringer, so that in my turn it was super easy to mop him up. I just had my Chapter Master run up to him, shoot him in the face with an Infernal Pistol, and then I think my Dreadnought crushed him in close combat with his fist right afterwards. So the Catan was actually no problem here at all. I didn't realise before the game really how great the Whirlwind was for countering the Catan. I mean, it obviously the Catan could just have stayed out of combat and used his Catan powers every turn, and that would have been decent. But like, one of the biggest strengths of the Catan is the fact that in the case of the Nightbringer, it's the fact that he gets like 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, and you can't take invulnerable saves against those attacks, and they're like flat 3 damage, right? Well, that's one of the big reasons he's so expensive in points, and like the Whirlwind just shuts that down completely. And I think he actually only killed 2 Blade Guard veterans with the Catan, because I ended up this game having 1 Blade Guard veteran standing over here on this objective, like chilling, going like, oh well, you didn't kill me. And yeah, you're right, you could take something like Blood Boil or something, but the problem when I was facing this Necron list, I hadn't tailored my list at all, right? And that was the whole point of this list. It was to use the same list for like a streak of games and just win the games against all the different armies. And that's really what I'm doing with all my lists. And the next list that we build, we're trying to build that generic list that will beat everybody, right? 6-man unit, 3 + 19 attack, strength 5, -3, 2 damage, total potential damage. I'm not entirely sure what unit you're talking about is attacking what, sorry, Captain. Transhuman does make Blade Guard veterans slightly stronger, I guess, than Terminators holding this. You know what? It probably balances out. The -1 to the small arms fire bonus probably balances out a little bit. But then, you know, late in the game, maybe you don't have any CP left for the Blade Guard veterans to do. Alright, so the Blade Guard veterans get 19 attack, strength 5, -3, 2 damage. Yep, so total potential damage is 38. The Thunderhammer Storm gets hits on 4s, and they get 11 attacks, strength 8, -2, 3 damage. Yeah, I guess that's true. But, I mean, the other question I suppose you could do is the Terminators can arrive from Deep Strike, so they can arrive right in the middle of the board. And then the other thing I suppose with the Terminators is they would get more benefit from some sort of rerolls, from Chapter Master rerolls. And yeah, the Terminators do get that stratagem when they arrive from Deep Strike to give them I think it's +1 to both shooting and close combat, right? Or am I wrong there? Is it one phase? Maybe it's Descent of the Angels that does it both phases. And I actually don't think there's a lot of strength in the Teleport Beacon Laughing, because it takes a whole turn to redeploy them. So if you're going to use the beacon, you're going to basically end up with your Terminators off the board they're going to be off the board turn 1, they'd arrive in turn 2, they'd be off the board again turn 3, they arrive in turn 4. It feels like be off the board quite a lot of the time. And I actually don't super like making those 9-inch Deep Strike charges, right? Like, I guess there's like a 50-50 chance on those 9-inch Deep Strike charges happening. So if you're going to have them off the board for 2 times and you're going to do that, I think it's kind of risky. Like, I maybe the Teleport Beacon works on Terminators with guns, like Stormbolters, like a lot of Stormbolters and like 10 Terminators, maybe that would work. But how do Blade Guard Veteran have a better save? I think Terminators have the better save is what I meant to say. Blade Guard Veterans have Transhuman. Oh, alright, you're on the chat. Okay, so Necrons, I guess. The tactic was to remove units fully, get on objectives, secure them ASAP, and kind of... In this game, we actually killed so many more Necrons than he killed of mine, but it was really a battle to get those points because the Necrons do so well at holding objectives. So that was a really close game if you want to watch it. I think Andrew has gone back. So Andrew's actually changed his Necron list and his Sisters of Battle list. He's desperate to beat me in the near future. So we will be returning with some of those, like rematches of some of those games, I guess. So if we've been over all of the slides, I've got one slide left to talk about then, and it's our game against our super heavy Iron Hands tank. And again, let's talk about priorities then, and this is what I would call a concealed deployment, right? If you thought my other deployments were all castle deployments, then this, so Descent of the Angels applies to both the shooting and the combat phase, whereas Fury of the First just works in one of the 2 phases, sorry. The Terminators have the 1+ save, because they normally have the 2+. So this is the one deployment where we're calling it like a concealed deployment, right? So I believe the cannon on the super heavy Astreus is 72 inches. So basically he's shooting me almost anywhere on the board. He's going to be able to shoot me. So everything is potential. You see, the reason the units are actually behind the terrain as opposed to in the terrain is to make sure that like he cannot draw a line of sight against them. We did leave the Blade Guard veterans sort of in terrain, I guess, by being in cover. These guys would have a 1-up save. The biker here is kind of safe because he's probably not going to be the closest enemy unit, and everything else is really deployed defensively. And when we came up against this Iron Hands list, he actually went first, which is interesting. I wonder if this game would have been different if I went first. But because he went first, he was really quite afraid of my attack bikes, which I guess is fair enough, right? I have been using them to great effect. They are within 6 inches of my captain here, so we would have started the game by giving those attack bikes Chapter Master rerolls, zooming them forward like 14 inches, and then trying to shoot everything into the tank. If this was me, I might have even started that super heavy tank back in a more defensive position, but other people maybe don't play as defensively as me. Sure, ones always fail. Yes, that's correct, right? But if you get hit with -1 AP and you have a 1+ save, you still save on 2s laughing. So if you were shooting, let's say, Terminators with like bolt rifles, which are -1, the Terminators would still save on 2s, the Blade Guard veterans would save on 3s. If you're shooting them with something like -2, like Thunderhammers, the Terminators would save on 3s because it's -2 from their 1, whereas the Blade Guards would be pushed on to their 4+ invulnerable save because it's -2 on their 2, right? So basically, by having that +1 to their normal 2+ save, it basically lets them ignore 1 point of AP. And Steel Rain, thanks for jumping in there as well. So this was a game where we deployed as much as obscured as possible. And it was actually a good deployment because from where he has here, I don't think he was able to draw a line. Oh shit. He wasn't able to draw a line at these bikes, right? Like if you look, if he was going to draw a line from this tank to these bikes, he's not going to be able to hit the bikes, right? So he had 2 choices here. I guess he could have moved the tank over into this section of the board, or he could move it forward. And I guess he was scared of the bikes, which is arguably so. They are very mobile. They do a lot of damage. There was also my Psyker in here who could potentially like jump forward, you know, move 5 inches, jump forward 12, null zone the tank. Then the bikes could hit it, and we could be saying goodbye to the tank very early. So he moved the tank forward and killed my bikers. He just shot pretty much everything in them, and I think he actually profiled one of these dreadnoughts pretty badly. Like the super heavy tank is absolutely no joke, but by moving forward, my whole Sanguinary Guard were positioned in here, and we jumped them out. And we used our 20-inch advance on the bike Chapter Master to just get him up here. I didn't want to risk him failing the charge, so we just used a 20-inch overcharge to get him up there, to give that Sanguinary Guard the +1 to hit, to give them the reroll 1s, and to be able to do a lot of damage to the super heavy tank early in the game. And we did actually get a little bit of luck here. We had to take 6 5+ feel no pains on the Sanguinary Guard in turn 2 against that super heavy tank, and we passed 5 of them, which was pretty huge. Normally when I have to do 6 like 5+ feel no pains on the Sanguinary Guard, I don't get a single 5, so that definitely helped in this game. Again, it wasn't that close a game, maybe because of a little bit of luck like that early, but if it hadn't happened, I feel like I would have still won the game. But again, I just made myself like 2 priorities in this game, and he actually had a bunch of characters, and we also decided we're going to hold the middle, even though there's not so much terrain in the middle. We knew that if we killed his tank, his army would essentially be neutered in terms of firepower. So I just made the tank absolutely #1 priority, right? If we can remove it, the rest of the list isn't nearly as strong. You know, he spent 600 points. I think he had a Tech Marine buffing the tank as well, so 800 or 900 points in this one model. And he also had an Ironclad Dreadnought around it as well. So if we can remove that, then we have a very good chance of winning the game. And we went basically YOLO down the middle and took that out early. And I was actually thinking when he killed the attack bikes in the first turn that I've generally deployed them pretty badly, because I was like, I should have deployed them where there was no chance for him to kill them. But saying that, the fact that he had to move forward to kill them actually probably helped me out quite a lot, right? Because if he hadn't moved forward, then there would have been a turn when I was in no man's land, and the heavy tank could have like picked off a few things, and maybe on a different day we don't roll 5+s out of 6 for the Sanguinary Guard, and things are a bit different. So this was a bit of a weird game, but yeah, so that's a bunch of different games, and I don't think this Tyranids game has been on my channel, so I will do a video on that Tyranids game. And there was one other game that hasn't been on the channel, this Second Sisters of Battle game, and this game was bloody close. Like I said, he had so many multi-metas. So I'll get an abridged battle report of these games onto the channel in the next couple of weeks. I guess we aren't going to be playing any games for a few Mondays. I guess like we'll aim for like Monday the 31st as like our first day back to live games, but like I can't really make any promises on exactly when we'll be back. So in the interim, I guess probably what I'll do this week, Richard, thank you so much. You mentioned a video about your list if you manage 10 wins. Is this something you'd still hoping to do? Yeah, that's a very good point as well, Richard. I don't know why it didn't pop up. Maybe it's just coming. There we go. Yeah, let me hit this train of thought, Richard, and then I'll come right to your question. Yeah, so these two wins, the Sisters of Battle game and the Tyranids game, I'll go ahead and I'll edit these battles so that they're more abridged battles, right? So it's not the whole 3-hour thing, and I'll take screenshots and I'll cut some live battle footage into it, and I'll put these two games up on the channel maybe over like the next couple of Monday nights. So there's still like a video going out on Mondays, and I'll try and hang out in the live chat. We'll set it up as a premiere so you guys can watch it, and you know, you can ask me any questions while we're doing that and stuff. So we'll do that. We'll do that over the next couple of Mondays. So there's a couple of games that you guys probably haven't seen. Some of you guys might have seen it if you tune in or watch on the Plastic Crackheads. But regardless, we can probably do some detailed analysis on those. And then so I did say I was going to make a video if the list got to 10 wins in a row. It's good that you reminded me that. So the list has gone 11 wins in a row. So I think it deserves its own video. I'm pretty happy with how that list performed, to be honest. I mean, I didn't think it would go 11 wins in a row. And because it is my list, I can probably make that video pretty quickly because I know all about it and we can talk about it. I had wanted it to be fully painted. I thought the Twitch name said Bacon Commander, lol. Yeah. I changed my name on Twitch, get this, right? Because my name was BA_Commander. And I went on the Twitch app to try and find my channel. And I realized on the Twitch app you can't type underscores. So I was like, oh great. So I made my channel name literally something you cannot type on the Twitch app, because it uses its own custom keyboard and stuff. And I was like, all right, I got to change the name of it. So I guess we just become BA Commander. But yeah, we can 100% make that list, that video. I'm trying to think if next Monday we're going to do a battle report, and I'll try and do it sometime for like next week, I think. And yeah, we can talk over the strengths and weaknesses. I had wanted it to be fully painted. It's not quite fully painted yet. I mean, the guys are in a pretty decent spot, you know. Like the most these are some of the most unpainted models in the list, I guess. So they're not bad, but I mean, I had wanted it to be fully painted, but we could make the video. And I'll keep working on the painting, you know. BA Commander loves bacon. You know, I do actually love bacon. I don't eat it as much as I want, because me and my wife try not to eat meat very often because of the whole saving the planet nonsense. But yeah, I mean, I do love bacon. I don't know if you've tried the vegetarian bacon. It's not my favorite. It reminds me of those crisps you used to get. You know, I think they were called Oinks or something when they were like 10p crisps. That's what the vegetarian bacon reminds me of, that artificial bacon flavor. So yeah, we'll make a video on the list that's gone 11 for 0. We still could make a video on the list that went 8 for 0 as well. And I am excited to make this new list. And I think I want the new list to go, like, if the new list doesn't manage to go 11 for 0 as well, I'll be really upset, right? Pork rinds, was that what they were called? Maybe. It's hilarious that I called it nonsense. Well, I mean, it is a little, yeah, it's not nonsense, right? We generally do try and eat less meat. I don't know if you've watched that documentary on Netflix this week about the oceans and how, like, I guess humans shouldn't eat fish either, but yeah, we try and do our bit. We try and eat a bunch of corn stuff, and I guess the reason I think it's nonsense is because, like, us doing it is not going to change anything. You need everybody to do it, and a bunch of people aren't going to do it, I guess. So, but we try and do our bit. Same as, like, we actually don't use disposable nappies actually for our baby, because the same thing. We're trying to be conscious. We're trying to be like good human beings and not kill the planet, I guess. So yeah, back on topic. The fake veggie bacon is disgusting. Faking, HB sauce and ketchup. Yeah, we'll make everybody in the chat angry. So, yeah, we'll make a list. We'll make a video on the list that's going to go 11 wins in a row. And I mean, if you want to see that list now, if you want to just get the list to look at, you would just need to head over to the tactics page of, like, if you come into the Blood Angels Commander channel and you go into my playlist section, which is just here, playlists. Obviously, there's some of my own playlists here. You what you see here is slightly different from what I see. But if you find the Monday Night Warhammer playlist, and you click into any of the videos, you can just find my list in the comments and pick it up there, right? So if you want to see that list now, what am I trying to say? If you want to see that list now, Richard, you can do that. Have you ever tried Tesco's bacon flavoured crisps? They're awful on their own, but they go decently well with beer. I mean, all crisps go well with beer, so I feel like that's not a fair comparison. I mean, do you know what? The only crisps that don't go well with beer are those horrendous scampi ones that you get at some bars. I forget what they're called. Someone will know them. They're like a love-hate thing. Some people love those scampi crisps. I think they're the most disgusting thing ever invented by humans. Commander lives by the 5 virtues. Bacon Commander. Sirens in the background. Yeah, do you know what? We live next to a main road, and I guess with the COVID thing going on, there's a lot of ambulances and stuff going past from time to time. So, yeah, so hopefully this was a bit of a different stream. If you learned something from this stream, then scampi fries, that's what they're called. Yeah, they are the most disgusting thing ever. They are the only crisps that don't go well with beer, Gitly. I thought you were cool before, but now that you like those scampi fries, I mean, we need to reevaluate. We need to think about it. So, yeah, hopefully this was a bit interesting, just talking tactics and stuff. And yeah, we'll put up a couple more battle reports. We'll put up a couple of list videos. I'm looking forward to getting back on the table a lot, to be honest. And we don't typically talk too much about deployments across multiple games. So I think the one thing that I want to say is, like, before all these games, right? Because, it's... When I was first playing these games on stream, so the first couple of games we did on this channel were pre-recorded games, right? So, like, the games were just recorded, and afterwards, if I felt the game was good, I would maybe edit it and put it up on the stream. And when I was doing those pre-recorded games, I was winning as many games as I was losing, right? So it usually takes me a couple of weeks to make a battle report. So occasionally I would put up a game that I would lose if it was a close game, but I was losing just as many as I was winning. And then when we started going live on the channel, or when we started doing the super heavy tank list, which was about September last year, we just started winning all the time. And I think it took me that long to figure out that Blood Angels play differently in 9th than they do in 8th. And you can't just run close combat based lists. I mean, maybe you can, and maybe, like, some of you guys do really well with close combat lists, but I was not doing well with them at all, right? So I kind of felt like I can't run close combat based lists, So when I changed to have that mix of shooting, I just started winning every single game I was playing. It didn't matter who I was playing against. In fact, I know I talk a lot about actual win streaks. Hey, Benjamin. But I believe out of the last 22 games I've played now, we've won 21. So obviously we had the 11 game win streak in there, and we had the 8 game win streak in there, and then we had a few other games. But yeah, so 21 out of the last 22 games we've played have been wins, and the core of the force is still the same, right? It's still Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws, it's still Sanguinary Guard, it's still Chapter Masters, the main core of is still Infiltrators, I suppose. The main core of the list is sort of the same, and yeah, I think going forward in 9th edition, I expect to make a new list that will win a lot of games as well, and I think maybe not so much at the beginning, when we were just starting out and we were just starting to win games, but more recently, when we've been starting to win games all the time, I've been trying to think objectively about, like I said, a priority before every game starts, right? I don't want to ever go into a game and just be like, well, I'm just going to kill the enemy's Leviathan because I don't like Leviathans or think Leviathans are scary. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into every game thinking what is going to cause me the most problems in this game, and what do I want to deal with, and I don't put as much thought into secondaries maybe as I put into how I'm going to survive and how I'm going to kill the opponent, right? Because if you are killing your opponent effectively and you're dealing with the threats, then you can usually find the ways to get the secondaries, right? And yes, in some games, obviously, there is easier secondaries than others. Sometimes the map turns up its priority targets and you can just sit in your own deployment zone and gain 15 points. Sometimes Oath of Moment comes up and there's some great terrain in the middle of the map and you can just run one unit and sit in terrain. Sometimes I've had my Psyker just sit in the middle of the terrain, in the middle of the map, and score 15 points easily that way. Or sometimes it's Relentless Assault and the enemy has an army that needs to charge you, like World Eaters, so I can just throw my 5 Vanguard Veterans into the enemy's deployment zone, not even think about them, score an easy 15 points from Relentless Assault, right? So sometimes the game will hand you easy ways to score secondaries. And if it does, take those easy ways to score the secondaries, absolutely. But I think the more important thing for me is, when you're deploying, think about what needs to survive, what objectives you need to take on the board. I talk a lot about not stretching yourself too thin. You'll never see me go after all the objectives on a map, right? I mean, maybe at the end of the game when the game's whittled out, you will see me have units on every objective in a map. I like to do that at the end of the game if I'm winning a game as kind of like a kick in the teeth for the enemy. I have a model on every objective. I like to do it, but I'm never going to start the game with that priority. I'm going to start the game by thinking, I need 2 or 3 maybe objectives to get good primary scoring, and then I need to be dealing with the biggest threats in the enemy's army. And sometimes their army can be overloaded with threats. The Sister of the Battle list is a really good example of overload of threats. The Death Guard list is a really good example of overload of threats. And sometimes that can be really hard to deal with, I suppose, but having some sort of strategy around that, I think, really can help you just win the games by knowing that. So I don't know if I articulate that particularly well, but I do think that when I look at the enemy's list, because I always look at these lists before I play them. I'm not changing my list. I'm just looking at the enemy's list. I mean, if you tailor your list, because some people obviously, if I'm going to play against an enemy and they gave me a list, we could build a list that would do really well against them, but that's not the point. The point is to build one list that can fight against everything, and when you see that enemy's list, work out what threats you need to deal with and why. And if you don't deal with the threats correctly, you can lose the games. Against Death Guard, like I said, I literally Infernal Pistoled the wrong character, and it almost cost me the game. Against Necrons, I forgot to make a charge or something, and it almost cost me the game. So sometimes, you can, your plans or your priorities might not go perfectly, but I think if you have those plans, especially like from the get-go, before you put that first model on the table, I think it can help a lot. Alright, let's catch up on chat 1 second. Alright, so for a dedicated shooting platform, I really like the Relic Contemptor with 2 Volkites in the missiles. Feels a bit heretical not to have a melee option on the Dread. For the heavy 8 at 40 inches is very nice. Yeah, I mean, the Volkites and the missile launchers on the Contemptor is actually really good. I mean, it's comparable, I guess, or maybe even slightly better to the Redemptor. I guess the advantage of the Redemptor is if you do get in close combat, then you have that giant fist, which is generally pretty scary as a Blood Angel. I like having the fists, but I can see the strength of those Contemptors. We actually did a video on those, if you want to check it out. I think we compared them to the Redemptor in a video, maybe. You almost have to know the other armies as well as your own to know the biggest threat. I mean, that is sort of true, Benjamin. And while we don't currently cover too many other armies yet on this channel, I was thinking of doing videos where we talk about some of the other armies and the biggest threats and why I go after those threats. Because I think that would help some people out as well, maybe if they're coming up against armies they haven't seen before. How many armies in 40k again? After 6 months, I barely know how to play my own. I guess. I mean, maybe that's why I stick with one army, so I know how to play it. Have you effectively made all your friends now tailor their lists? I mean, my friends have been trying, they have been trying to beat my list, yes. So they are trying to make their lists better throughout the course of our games. But I don't think they're particularly tailoring to play me precisely. They're just tailoring to make their list better. So Tony says he's taken off. It's a school night and I'm a sleepy Primarch. Thanks for watching, Tony. We're going to wrap it up in like the next 10 minutes, guys. So if you have any final questions, please throw them into the chat now. It's really hard to counter mobility, which has stamina, and trying to counter Blood Angels will really open up to other lists. Drukhari, Raiders, Dark Lords, spam. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get a game against Drukhari. I guess at this point it'll be next month. We're also going to try and get a game against Orcs because people said they wanted to see Orcs, and also Drukhari, Orcs, and Admech. No one's actually asked me to see Admech, but I feel like Admech are in a pretty strong situation, so I thought we'd do Admech as well. Your mate should simply play like Yellow Blood Angels against you. I mean, I guess. It's funny because last edition I had a lot of problems with Ultramarines, but I guess the way that they changed, Ultramarines just aren't strong anymore. I don't actually know what made Ultramarines super weak, but I guess they're just not as strong as they used to be. What would a 500 point list look like for you? I mean, 500 points is really tough. I actually find it harder to make those really small lists. 500 points, I guess, is like infiltrators, maybe like a captain on a bike, not a chapter master because you're very limited on points. Maybe like 4-man Sanguinary Guard and like a Redemptor or something. If you can fit all that in, I mean, I guess. Maybe it doesn't have to be infiltrators actually on a 500 point, just in cursors. Gabriel says Admech is scary. Only thing I've lost to in my last 10 games. Cool. Are you going to take your list to a big tournament? I have a tournament ticket later this year, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to go to that tournament. But I mean, the ultimate goal, I suppose, for me in the next sort of year sort of time is to get to a tournament. So I have only been to one tournament since I returned to the hobby, and I came third. But it was a kill team tournament, so I don't know how much it counts. So I do enjoy competitive play, and I guess probably I'm hoping that I'll feel less pressure in competitive play because I play now in front of you guys every week. In the first couple of games that I did in front of you guys, like when there's 100 people watching, there's quite a bit of pressure there. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's like artificial pressure that I created because I don't want to lose games and people be like, oh, why the hell do we watch the Blood Angels commander? He sucks, right? So I created a bit of pressure, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I will be planning to go to tournaments. Probably, like, the list that I'm going to build next is going to be a tournament list. Whether or not I get to a tournament any sort of time soon is another question, but it is something that I plan to do. How do you submit a list for the weekly review video? It's very easy to submit your list for the weekly review. You just need to head over to the Blood Angels Commander YouTube channel, hit on community. So you should see something like this if you're on the community page, and seeing the latest community post, just click comment and just dump your list in here from like Battlescribe, and I'll pick it up and I'll add it to the queue for future review videos. I'm playing Drukhari soon. I'm worried I might lose. I would love to see the like when you know the list you're playing against, Mark, for Drukhari, post up in Discord and tag me in it, and let's have a chat about it. We could even add, like, if you can get the list a few days in advance, we could even talk about it at the end of one of the Sunday streams, or something like that. Is still something happy about as far as pressure goes from my perspective. You have a pretty supportive group of followers. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I feel the same level of pressure now that we've done. You know, like, it was more about like the first few games, right? And you guys thought like, oh, am I any good at playing the game? But now that we've done like, you know, multiple long streaks of wins, and the only game we lost recently was that first game back after the last set of lockdown. So it was my first game in 3 months that we lost. I mean, I don't even know if that really counts, right? Because like I was so rusty. But yeah, it's I guess the pressure is kind of off now. I'm feeling like I don't feel any pressure on Monday nights anymore. So I'm thinking that when we go to a tournament, hopefully there'll be no pressure either. Just so Pedrog is, I guess, giving you the 500 point list, which is the Chief Librarian Dreadnought, a Tactical Squad, and a Sanguinary Guard, and that comes in exactly 500 points. I mean, that's a pretty strong list as well. I mean, I'd probably swap out the Tactical Squad for Incursors, maybe. I guess it's Tactical Squad with a Heavy Flamer, but I just prefer the additional attacks the Incursors get. But I mean, it's personal preference. Any advice on a kill team list? As me and my friends are starting on kill team and then building up into bigger battles like 2K, maybe a kill team advice video. Do you know what? We could do an advice video on kill team at some point, on where to start, I guess. But I haven't played kill team in a while. That list will murder 93% of any other 500 point list. I like how you said 93%. It's super precise, right? Okay. Well, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope tonight's stream was interesting. I appreciate you all hanging out for sure. I'm sorry it's not a live game. We will get back to live games very soon, I'm sure. Like I said, I'm getting my first dose of COVID vaccination tomorrow. So that's something. Hopefully the cases in my area will be like right back down in a few weeks, and we'll get back to the battles. And yeah, I'll make those other videos that people ask. That's not a problem as well. Probably, you know, we always put out more Blood Angels content every week, so keep an eye. If you haven't subscribed before, then please consider subscribing. You know, we are here every week, and yeah, I hope you guys learned something. Thanks so much for hanging out. I was a bit sad that we weren't going to get to play a live game, especially because last week we actually had, for the first time ever, over 100 people watching the live game at the same point. I think it was like 105 concurrent viewers. So I was super chuffed. I was like, on one side it was like, awesome, we made 100 viewers, and on the other side it's like, the hand that giveth must taketh away. So we'll be back live soon, and hopefully we'll have a bunch more close games, and hopefully we'll have a stronger Blood Angels list. You know what? I've never got Tabletop Simulator, man. Maybe one day we'll get it, but yeah, I think, I don't know. I think I just really like playing on the actual table, and like I think Tabletop Simulator is maybe like Like, it doesn't excite me like it does the playing on the table. And I don't know why. I think maybe it's just like the tactile feel of the models and the dice, and there's something about that I guess I just don't feel you get from Tabletop Simulator. So, I mean, some people love Tabletop Simulator. More power to them. But I guess it's not something I've tried yet. Maybe one day we'll try it, but hopefully we're only a few weeks away from the end of lockdown, and we have some other battles that we can share in the. It's easier to flip the table. I mean, I like that, Pedro. You always make me laugh. Yeah, I mean, can you actually flip the table, or are you just messing? I don't know. It shows how little I know about it. It's certainly less expensive if you flip the table. All right. Well, yeah, have a great night, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I will catch you, I think, probably next on Thursday night for a hobby hangout. And then probably we'll have tactics video on Friday, and we will get the video made about the 11 wins in a row list, so that'll be coming up as well. Oh, and last thing, maybe it's I've meant to say this at the start of the stream. Yeah, so this is the official Blood Angels Reddit. I don't know how many people many of you people look at Reddit, but a new Blood Angels player won an ITC tournament just this week. I don't know if you all noticed this, but this is actually my Reddit post. And basically, a new player that only ever played games against salamanders was watching all of videos on the Blood Angels Commander channel, and he ended up winning. He says, "I wanted to tell you something exciting. I went to an ITC tournament because I was desperate to learn about other armies and play against something else. But I friggin' won, beating a Dark Angels, White Scars, and Adeptus Custodes army on the route, having never played any of these armies before, and this video was particularly helpful." So I've asked him for a copy of his list, and I just thought it was really funny that literally this is the top post on the Blood Angels Reddit right now. 333 upvotes. What a star, eh? He's never played against Dark Angels, White Scars, or Custodes, but he friggin' won the tournament. So props off to TJ. I actually saw a notification saying he subscribed like in a stream on Thursday night, so he's only been a subscriber for like a week. But yeah, props off to TJ for winning a tournament, having never played any of the enemies, just by watching Blood Angels Commander videos. So yeah, kind of amazing. I don't think I've ever had a thread on Reddit that's been top, so that was kind of fun. So yeah, anyway guys, have a great evening. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you really enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something, and hopefully see you guys all soon. By the blood are we made, brothers. Peace.